Understanding and coping with vicarious trauma. Experiencing some level of vicarious trauma is practically inevitable if you work in the helping professions, such as nursing, social work, and humanitarian work, where you are seeking to care for people who have been hurt. Given this, it is important to understand how exposure to other people's pain and suffering can challenge and change us. This video will help you learn more about vicarious trauma and explore these questions. What is vicarious trauma? What are common signs? What can help shield you from experiencing vicarious trauma? And what can help you recover when you are impacted? Let us begin by defining vicarious trauma. Vicarious trauma is a type of stress reaction that can result when we witness or hear about other people's pain and suffering. Vicarious trauma is often talked about as secondary or indirect stress or compassion fatigue because it is a result of what happens to other people. You may be at increased risk of experiencing vicarious trauma because of the nature of your work. You are particularly at risk if your role involves being exposed to stories, information, or images of conflict, suffering, loss, abuse, violence, and/or torture. Socially and emotionally isolated from friends and family. Under increased stress because of personal experience and/or living and working in difficult or dangerous environments. Inadequately trained, supervised, and/or supported for the work you are doing. How and to what extent an individual is impacted by vicarious trauma depends on a complex array of professional and personal factors. These include the current constellation of risk and protective factors at play in their lives, and any trauma they may have experienced in the past. It is important that you can identify the common signs and symptoms of vicarious trauma. Many of the common signs are similar to general signs of stress. These include disturbed sleep, headaches and other aches and pains, feeling irritable, angry, distracted, or unable to focus without a clear reason, difficulty relaxing and winding down, increased feelings of sadness, grief, helplessness, or hopelessness, increased use of substances such as alcohol and sleeping medication. Now, let us examine the signs of vicarious trauma that more clearly differentiate it from general stress or burnout. Experiencing trauma reactions is one sign of vicarious trauma. You do not have to experience something personally to be affected by it. When you witness someone else's pain, you can develop signs of post-traumatic stress. These can include an increase in intrusive thoughts about distressing material, increase in worry or anxiety, startling easily and feeling constantly alert or hypervigilant, avoiding reminders of the distressing material. Changes to your sense of meaning, purpose, and spirituality can also be a sign of vicarious trauma. Vicarious trauma often impacts your core beliefs and assumptions about the way the world works and life happens. For example, you may begin to question the existence and nature of meaning, purpose, God, and hope, as well as your own identity, roles, and responsibilities in life. Beliefs that are often challenged when we are exposed to suffering include people are basically good and kind. Bad things do not happen to good people. Things will work out for the best. Justice will be served. What we are doing is worthwhile. You may also begin to feel cynical or guilty. Changes in relationships are another sign of vicarious trauma. Vicarious trauma influences your ability to feel empathy and compassion, as well as to feel connected to yourself and other important people in your life. As such, vicarious trauma influences the way you act and interact with your family and friends. Some of the ways this often shows up include difficulty accepting or feeling okay about yourself, problems managing the boundaries between yourself and others. You might take on too much responsibility and have difficulty leaving work at the end of the day, or try to control other people's lives. Finding it difficult to feel compassion and empathy. Feeling disconnected to what is going on around and within you. Over time, vicarious trauma can draw you into negative behavior patterns that harm you, your work, your colleagues, and beneficiaries, as well as the functioning and effectiveness of your organization. These behaviors can include trying to fix everything, doing more than is necessary, being rigid and cynical, failing to take responsibility for your actions. Being impacted by vicarious trauma is a predictable outcome of being in a job that is focused on helping others during or after traumatic experiences. So, let us now look at what you can do to prevent and recover from it. The 4 C's provide a useful framework that can help us identify effective strategies when it comes to preventing and managing vicarious trauma. Consciousness. This reminds us of the importance of being conscious, mindful, and aware of what we are experiencing and how we are reacting over time. When we understand more about vicarious trauma and how it can influence us, we can become more conscious of how we are reacting and coping. When we can monitor ourselves more effectively, we are better equipped to decide what we need at different points in order to best prevent and address vicarious trauma. Connection. Connection is one of our best buffers against emotional distress. There are at least 2 really important aspects of connection to foster. Connective and supportive relationships to family, friends, colleagues, and pets. Connection to sources of meaning, purpose, hope, refreshment, and perspective. Culture. This acknowledges the power of our environment and the cultures that shape our daily lives. Evaluate how your workplace culture helps protect and support staff exposed to potentially distressing content or situations. Some important questions to consider include: what is the nature of my work? How much inherent risk of vicarious trauma does this role or occupation carry? How does my workplace and manager help create a sense of safety, security, support, and comfort? Coping. People who are regularly using healthy coping strategies to address and manage stress tend to have more of an emotional buffer in place and be more resilient. As such, they usually function more effectively over time when they are in situations that place them at risk of experiencing vicarious trauma. There are many self-care and coping strategies we know are helpful. These include exercise, spending time with loved ones, eating healthy and staying well hydrated, getting sufficient sleep, spending time in nature, practicing mindfulness or other relaxation strategies, using our creativity in ways that's unconnected to work, doing things that bring us joy and pleasure. Remember the 4 C's: consciousness, connection, culture, and coping to help you identify effective strategies to prevent and manage vicarious trauma.